Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Whole Perspective. My name is Kevin Delory, Chief Lending Officer with EPM. As always, joined by my good man, Kenny Phillips, Senior Vice President of Sales. Today, we have a great guest on. He is by far the most handsome Mancuso I know. He's also named after my favorite Mancuso of the Mancuso tribe from Windermere, who is Thomas. This is a great episode. We've been looking forward to this, Tom, since we've seen you speak at Vision 2020. And I didn't get a chance to talk to you after that to tell you how powerful your story was. And as Kenny mentioned, he said, this is the first episode I've never had a jacket on. It's because I feel relaxed. I feel like I know you already. I feel like you're like one of my brothers. And your story relates to a lot to, two of my brothers that are no longer with me. But that was what I wanted to get together with you afterwards to say, thanks for sharing your story, because out of bad, something so good could happen. And everybody always wants to hear, when I was out vet at VA, everyone said, the one thing we want to hear on the Whole Perspective, and the one thing we want to hear on stage at all these conferences is about how do you come back from a failure? And I think that is what made, me so attracted to your speech and want to talk to you so bad, and so excited to have you on today. But before we do that, I'll let Kenny do a quick intro of Tom. Anyone that doesn't know Tom, Kenny, if you want to take away.
Absolutely. We won't give away too much because he had a great story, but Tom's a proud father and husband. He's a loan officer and branch manager at AmeriFund Home Loans. As Kevin said, his story is truly one for the books. He had some life-altering experiences, one of which is becoming an amputee and also being incarcerated. With these early trials and tribulations, Tom did what most people won't do, which is turn it around. He's one of the mortgage industry's favorite people. Everyone loves Tom. If you're at any mortgage industry event, you'll hear Tom sighting because everyone wants to talk and be around Tom. So welcome, Tom.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, Tom, this is great. And, it's funny. I wore this shirt because this is your story, right? It's talk is cheap. It's the actions, and what I didn't get to say to you before is I wish that my brothers got to hear your story while they were still here, because it's so inspirational. To me, it's like, I connected with you immediately, after everything you've been through. You got back and you are who you are today. And I think, what you've done in the industry, the fact that you're able to open up and share, I think anyone that has watched the Whole Perspective has seen me throughout every episode open up more and more, because it's something I've always kept my story as being my story, and not realizing how my story can inspire or help, get somebody else through the day. And, I get confronted a lot in the streets or at the country club or out to dinner and say, they're not even in the mortgage business. Like, I watch your podcast and it's so inspirational, and really just need some positivity in my day. And you guys give that to me. So I thought that's really cool. And, if you want to just share a little bit of your story, because I wish, and I really, and I'm not blowing smoke, if my brothers were still here today and they heard this story, it goes to show you that anything's possible. We talk about, a tough market, boo-hoo. We could, if we fight through it and get through it, and we stay positive and keep the right mindset, we'll get through it and we'll be successful. And I'm sure that's what you're doing, because this to you is probably, mice nuts. It's so small, who cares, right? I've been through all this other stuff. This is nothing. So, if you want to share some of your story, that'd be awesome to start the podcast.
Yeah, and so my story is on couple of my speeches are on YouTube. To give the condensed, really short, Cliff Notes version of my story, I was very successful young. My father was in the car business. My dad was a finance director for a large car dealership group. I grew up around cars and sales and finance, and on the summer I would go spend it at the car dealership, and I would always be around people. And that was something I was always meeting new people and building relationships with people. And so I was successfully young. I started selling cars when I was 18. I didn't finish college against my dad's wishes because I was making such good money. I thought the work experience would be more beneficial than a paper degree. And so I stayed in the car business. I was a finance manager at 20. I remember at my first finance training afterwards, everybody went out for a beer. And I was like, oh, I got to go home and let my dog out, because I couldn't go. And I was ashamed to say how young I was. And so I was very successful young, but man, life hits you. Like it just felt like a snowball effect. Like I was being so successful at a young age, everything was going my way. Then at 21, my dad was diagnosed with cancer and under 6 months passed away. And that really just started kind of a downward spiral. What I used to, go have a beer with friends to celebrate something turned into, I would have a beer to celebrate. Next thing I know, I'd be sitting outside crying, or making my friend drive me to my dad's cemetery so I could sit outside his grave just by myself. And it really teaches you something, right? Like you really get into depression and you really get inside yourself. And you feel people don't understand it. You don't want to talk to people about it because you're ashamed. No one wants to discuss their failures. And I was very proud, and I had a very big ego, and I was very much about sharing those wins. That's how you inspire people. Look at what I'm doing. You can do this too. God, look at how successful I am at 20. These people are 50 and I'm twice as successful as them. And then life hits you again. One Saturday, I was in a horrible motorcycle accident, a tragic motorcycle accident, 2 blocks from my house at like noon on a Saturday. No other cars were involved. Something went wrong with the motorcycle. I suffered a leg amputation due to that. I suffered a traumatic brain injury, a number of other physical injuries, and it just completely turned my life upside down. I woke up in a hospital from an 8-day medically induced coma with about 10%, maybe 10% of my memory. The only 10% was facial recognition of my mother. I didn't know her name. I didn't know my name. I literally didn't know what happened to me. I was complete shock and terror and feeling helpless. And it is that feeling helpless. They had to strap me to the bed at one point because I was a fall risk. And I was in shock. I didn't know what happened to me. So I was jump out of the bed and try and get out of the hospital. And so literally had to tie me to the bed, strap me to the bed. And just that feeling of being helpless, I'll never forget that. And I still experience that. Like when my child is crying and my wife is trying to calm the child down, I feel helpless. Like I want to help. I don't want to feel like I'm chained to a bed somewhere and can't walk. And I try to relate that to my wife the other day, trying to explain that. And it really taught me when I got back into the finance business, because I didn't think I could go back to the finance world. I worked as a patient advocate. I volunteered a lot of my time because I was suffering physically, emotionally, psychologically. I had horrible PTSD. It took me about a year to get my memory back. But when I got my memory back, what I got were memories of the good days, the days where I didn't have these problems. And so I relate that to people in this industry talking about the 2 and 3% days. And God, I remember how great those days were. Really, I remember what it's like to get up in the middle of the night and not have to figure out how to walk to the bathroom because I can't walk. I don't wear my prosthesis in the middle of the night. When my baby's crying in the middle of the night, I have to stand on one leg in a wheelchair and pick that baby out of the crib. Try not to drop the baby or fall over. And here people are complaining about losing 100 bips in a day. And don't get me wrong, that's serious and that can inflict a lot of financial pain on our clients and their families. But we really do need to have perspective. And then I started noticing something in this business. I wear shorts. I'm a casual person, as Kenny said about the shirt. And I come as I am. I used to be so insecure before my accident. I would hide the problems. I would hide my real concerns or things that really affected me. And all that burying that stuff down was eating me alive. It didn't protect anyone. In fact, a lot of people saw that I had problems. They just didn't know to what extent. And so I just turned that around. The way I got out of my recovery was being honest and asking for help, whether it's medical professionals or psychologists or just friends and family. Hey, I'm suffering with this. And some of it people see. People who walk with me at these mortgage conferences, they know, hey, when I'm wearing dress shoes, it's a lot. I literally walked to another suite before the black tie gala in my black tie suit. And I was drenched in sweat from literally walking just from the elevator to a different room. And people see that, but I don't want that to weigh me down. It's not the woe is me thing. I want people to see those challenges, those struggles, and know it's okay to have those. And it's okay to work as long as it may take to overcome those. Because ultimately, people are inspired by your challenges, by your losses. not by your wins. In fact, when all you do is share your wins, you sound egotistical. You sound like a jerk. Not a lot of people want to get behind that. But if they know you're an underdog, or they know you faced a lot of things in life and you haven't let that beat you, people want to support that. There's people I've never met face to face that that reach out to me when I share my story like that. And to me, sharing that I overcame it is like kind of like revenge on those bad things that happened to me. But the most incredible revenge, the most incredible way for me, I feel, to get back at those things that happened to me is to be able to motivate or inspire someone else. I'll share this with you. I won't share the person's name. Jenna, someone at UPM who helped set this up, asked me for my bio. And I had a bio. It was shared for that Vision Summit, that speaking event, but I just couldn't find it. I changed companies. My email was messed up. I couldn't find it. A friend wrote it for me. It was like 2 short paragraphs. And so Jenna's like, hey, I want to promote the podcast. Please send me your bio. And I'm like, I can't find it. And so I asked that friend to write it again. And he did. He wrote, he knows me very well for the past 2 or 3 years. He knows my story better than most. He wrote this bio for me. And it made me break down in tears. It made me proud, but it's 100% true with me. So I shared that on Facebook. I wanted people to know, like, someone else wrote this about me. I got a text message from another broker yesterday afternoon, and she said, hey, I read your bio. I want you to know, I just lost my husband. My son is 23. It was his most favorite person in the world, and he's really struggling. I'm struggling. I'm 50 some years old, and I just had to get a pacemaker because I have a low heart rate, and I'm dealing with a lot of stress. And I'm terrified that something might happen to my son because he doesn't know how to deal with the loss of his father. And I'm not much help because I'm struggling a lot. And we have suicide in our family, and I'm worried that will happen to him. She sent that to me about dinner time. And I just was taken aback reading that. And she said, I read your bio, and I don't know if there's anything that you could share with me now, what you know now from what you went through with losing your father. And I just thought, wow, like, how powerful is that?
Right.
Like, holy shit, like, forget about bips, man. Like, this is someone's life. This is her son. Like, that's amazing. I mean, that's just powerful. And it's not because I closed 82 loans last year. She's not reaching out to me because of that. She's not reaching out to me because I'm on this podcast. She's not reaching out to me because I'm at a marathon or a lot of people know me. She's just reaching out because she needs help. And hopefully there's something I can say or do, or maybe just tell a story about how I survived. I used to tell people, and I'm going to tell her this today when we talk, I thought I was being tough at my dad's funeral. I was 21. I didn't want my mom and my brother to see me cry. And my dad was my best friend in the world. And I thought, I'm going to be tough. I'm not going to cry, right? I'm going to be the strong person. And then I cried for like the next 10 years of my life by myself, alone, all the time. What I buried deep down at my dad's funeral just came back up eventually, and it came up worse. And so we need to understand that all of our challenges, whether personal or business, we need to share those, help overcome them. And what you also find is you'll find good people in your life who maybe they can't help fix it, but they can help console you. They can help give you another idea of how to look at it. And I relate that to Kenny or Kevin. If I called you and said, man, I got a whole pipeline of unlocked loans, crap, man, give me something, like something you could tell me to keep my head up. I relate that to that. It's on a much bigger scale when it's personal and it's something like death or suicide or tragedy. But in perspective, it also really puts our business and our clients' families in perspective. Like, we have to remember, we don't work for a paycheck. We work for the shelter over our clients' family's head. We have to remember that importance. And I think it's a gift to be able to share our struggles with others if it helps motivate others. Eddie Perez is someone that I've become very close with, the CEO of EPM. And he shares that one of the first talks I ever had with him, he told me, a lot of people have heard it, his family's immigration story. And we live in a society where immigration, like a lot of things, can become polarizing. It can become a political toy. And this country was built on immigration. My family immigrated here. My grandfather immigrated here and felt like the best way to earn his stay in America was to serve this country. So it's things like that. We shouldn't shame people for immigration. We obviously need laws, and trust me, this is not a political statement, but for Eddie to share that when some people could look down on him for that, right? Like I hear it all the time. You shouldn't be ashamed of that. He should be proud of that. He is proud of that. And that inspired me when I heard that story, to be proud of my family's immigration story. And so we have to look at people around us for things like that, because it is the relationships in life that matter the most, but it's also the relationships in business that matter the most. I may not know everything when it comes to mortgages, but I guarantee you, I can probably within a minute call somebody who knows, or call somebody that can find somebody that knows. Like I have a network of thousands of people with hundreds, if not thousands of years of experience in this business, but also experience in life. Most of the most amazing professionals I know don't have an easy story. They weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth. They have a story also. And that's why they're so successful in business, is because Kevin, like you said, when business gets tough, they relate back. They think back to those challenges. They think back to, hey, man, a low appraisal. Hey, it's not as bad as waking up not knowing who you are.
It's a great point. I'll tell you, like I said, after meeting you, so I came, to here to EPM, 100% meeting Eddie has really changed, who I am. Culture here really exists. And I thought one of the coolest things that you just said, and it's taken a lot from me. And like I said, if you watch, I share more and more and more. I recently had somebody reach out to me and said, I worked with you for 10 years. I never knew one of the stories that you shared on that Whole Perspective. And it was because I would hide it, because I was afraid that people would think less of me, knowing of my struggles growing up, knowing that I had a brother that, at 18 was in prison. No, I had a brother, had an accidental overdose, all these stories, and they would be so dirty of me, and you'd look at me different. And now I share those stories because to your point, I think it just makes you stronger, makes you better. My story wouldn't be such so meaningful to me if those things didn't happen. It's my story. And I want to, hopefully my story can help, just like you're sharing about this woman and her son. Hopefully that story, my story, your story, we all have a story. We share those things instead of hiding them from people and thinking that it's a bad thing.
Right.
We share them. It only makes the next person stronger. So if you look at the evolution, I meet Eddie, okay, and he says, hey, culture. I'm like, what's wrong with this guy? But then you realize it's real. It's who he is, right? And, we have RBMF together, our little joke, but it's about all those struggles that we know about each other. And then all of a sudden I meet, Culture Matters, and I get involved with Jenner, and I start having these videos where I share my stories. And, and then I had some bumps where I had to share my story so people understood where I was coming from. Right. So when you do those things, it makes you stronger, makes you more vulnerable, which people want to be around someone that's not, Superman. We all got a weakness, right, Kenny? I mean,
absolutely. You hit it around the head, coming here and meeting Eddie and having those conversations and talking to Michael also. And they always say, be vulnerable, be vulnerable. Naturally, you're embarrassed about your struggles, right? Most people want to show the shiny side, the success, but you become more relatable, right? People can learn from your struggles because they're going through the same thing. So to have a story like yours and have a story like Kevin and come from the humble beginnings I come from, it helps a lot more people than just showing your success, man. So great point.
Yeah, and one of the most surprising things that I kind of just said, forget it, I'm just going to share. Like, it is what it is, especially now that technology age, you can Google and find things on the internet. If you Google my name, you'll eventually find that I did serve time in prison for some DUIs that I had before my accident. And I now live sober. I spent 13 years abstaining from alcohol and drugs. And one of the things that I guess I really didn't realize, and a customer told me this yesterday, we were having some challenges, getting the final documents to close their loan. And the wife was messaging me and she said, I'm getting nervous. We're supposed to close next Friday. And it's her dream home. They own a dog training business. They actually trained my service dog. And this is a larger property with like 3 acres. It would just make their home, their business beautiful. It's exactly what they need. And she told me, I'm getting nervous. I said, look, we're not home free yet. I said, but I won't give up. We're going to find a way. We're going to find a way. And I won't stop. And her response to me was, if there's one thing I know about you, I know you won't quit. I know you won't give up. And I thought, she doesn't know that because I'm a successful mortgage broker. She knows that because of my life stories. She knows that if an underwriter gives me a condition that I feel is unfounded, I'm going to call that underwriter and I'm going to try and work through it. And why I'm going to try and do that is because I've survived X, Y, and Z, because I didn't give up on those things. A lot of people may have given up. And trust me, there's times I wanted to give up, but I had 2 choices. It was give up or get up. That's all. That's what it came down to. I could simply throw in the towel on life, or I could just refuse to do that and just get up and try and do something with my life. I literally had a social worker tell me after my accident, I couldn't go home to my own house because it was a 2-story house. And she said, an above the knee amputee, which I am now, cannot climb stairs. What she technically meant was, no, I cannot walk leg over leg upstairs. However, I was like an 8-year-old mental capacity, reading capacity. I said, I have a little wiener dog with like 4-inch legs. If he can crawl up the stairs, can I just crawl up the stairs? And she laughed and said, you don't want to live like that. Who is she to tell me how to live? Like that was my home. The only thing I wanted to do was just go to my home. That was my safety. And I think about that. Like I proposed to my wife at our home. Like I think about when I have a client and we're refinancing their home or they want to buy a bigger home because they're having children. I think about what type of experiences, life experiences will they have in that home? And I can play a tiny little part in that, like a tiny little part. And how amazing that is, like to think about those things. And so, no, I didn't give up. I didn't accept that social worker's direction. I did go to my house. I did sleep on the first floor until I could crawl up the stairs. And then I eventually learned to walk up the stairs just using my sound regular leg. I just took every step with my left leg or my right leg. And it was my way of adapting and still accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. And so when we run into a dead end on a customer's file or a customer's purchase, what are our alternatives? Instead of giving a client excuses or reasons why we can't do things, I need to find solutions. But I'm not in this alone. I'm not on a deserted island. I can call you guys. I can call Eddie. I can call Carrie Cole. I could call my mortgage broker friends, Jamie Kavanaugh, Todd Bitter, Mike Cox, Ashley. I could call these people. I can get 20, 30, 100 heads thinking of options, ideas, and they don't get anything out of it other than they know deep down this is for someone's home. This is for a client's family. They know those experiences might be like that also. And we're in an industry where it's been thought of that we're all transactional, right? It's been thought that we all sit around in 3-piece suits, just counting our money and raking it in and counting the gold bars. And that's the furthest thing from the truth for us, right? Like that's just not how it is. That our industry maybe has some people like that in the banking side of things, but that's not how we are. We're people. And so if we want our clients to truly believe in us and take ownership in our relationship, we have to be ourselves.
Like you said there, Tom and Kenny, I talk about it all the time, and I'm the first to admit. And this is a tough thing for some, it's tough to admit, right? When I was a young, account executive back in the day, New Century, #1 account executive, I was the man, right? Why would I want to be a coach? I could still hit 40 home runs and steal 40 bases. I like being in the game. And as the older I've gotten, the more I've shared my story, the more I've been able to say, I need people around me. And I create a mastermind. I think of Frank Nice. I don't know crap about technology, but I know Frank does. He's going to help me. I think of Phil Mancuso. When I wanted a Mancuso that's not as nice and kind as you, I call Phil, and he's able to help me with rates and other things. So, it's building that mastermind. So when you talk about Jamie, Todd, that's the first key to success, to realize that you don't know everything. Let it go. Ask for help. Just like, you were talking about that people that are reaching out for you for help. Don't wait until you're in a moment of distress. Realize it today. For any, when anyone in our business is listening today, create your own mastermind. Surround yourself with a group of people. I don't know everything. To your point, some days I'm calling. Last time I was on the phone with Carrie. I'm like, Carrie, how does this work with these disclosures? She walks me through it. I go into Kenny. Kenny, I didn't know the system worked this way. Oh yeah, it does. Because I'm not afraid. Because since I've been here now, in previous companies, you had to prove your worth, that you were, because the culture's different. The food chain goes from the top down. At EPM, it's from the bottom up, right? Well, I'm in the basement, so I make sure that my pillars are strong to hold up everyone else. But I have to have those right people. So everybody, doesn't matter what you're in, what business you're in, look for people around you to support you and help you grow. You can't do it alone. Nobody does it alone. So anyone out there that says they're doing it alone, they're full of shit. No one does it alone. They need people around them. The great part is it's funny. I'll share one thing with you, Tom, is, Jen, and she's great. And she always gives us questions to ask. By the way, we've answered every question without asking any questions, just to let you know. So, I mean, you are that is so great. And this conversation, and Kenny and I will have a conversation after this, where every time we have a guest on here, it's never about just the mortgage business. It's about life. And it's about how to overcome any obstacle. And this is the stripped down me, right? Like, you're right. I always show up here in a jacket, in a suit, and whatever. Well, we wear shorts. I'm not going to lie. Just the top half looks good, Tom. But today I felt like I know you, and I felt like I was talking to one of my buddies, and we're sitting around, just bullshitting. And I felt very relaxed. I could take my suit of armor off, and you could see that, hey, this is me. I wear T-shirts on the weekend, everybody. By the way, we have one for you. We'll be sending out because you exemplify that talk is cheap. It's all about action. Right, Kenny?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we're hearing more and more as a common theme, like the mortgage community, right? The broker community. We are wholesale. People reaching out. Every time we have one of these podcasts, it's like, you know what? Jamie Cavanaugh giving out her number live on the podcast saying, call me if you have any questions. We're taking away that competitive word, and really just becoming one group, one organization, one community, which is wonderful. I've been doing this 20 years. This is the first that I've heard of it since I've been at EPM. I'm not sure as far as like AIM and things like that were going on, but as far as me being involved, I think it's a wonderful thing that I haven't seen in the past.
You guys exemplify your company culture, the people that you have exemplify abundance over a scarcity mindset and business, but also in society. Like we just need to work on that a little bit more. Part of my story that you guys heard, when I was incarcerated, I was in a facility, a prison that was segregated. A lot of prisons are racially segregated, and you're not supposed to help someone of a different race. And I was in a particular situation. Sometimes, like when I would go to breakfast, I wouldn't have my prosthesis on, so I'd be on crutches. You can't really carry a food tray when you're on crutches. And in prison, you really don't help each other unless it's your race. And sometimes those people are not really willing to help all of a sudden. And so I would always say that there would be someone of a different race who would not think about the penalties or the consequences. They would just see someone in need to get food, and they would help me regardless of what the consequences were. And so I kind of live by that. When I meet someone, whether it be in business or in personal life, I think to myself, would they get my tray for me? Would they risk being jumped, stabbed, something worse? Would they, because they see someone in need, would they get my tray for me? And what that has done for me, Kevin, like you're talking about the relationships and the people, that's allowed me to surround myself with just amazing people who also know other things and can help with other things in life. So if I need to call them because my appraisal's low or my income doesn't check out, I know they're going to be there for me on that, because they would also be there for me if something was worse. My accident story, a Vietnam veteran stopped and tied a tourniquet around my leg and prevented me from bleeding to death. I still lost 40% of my blood. Same thing with him. He didn't ask what my politics were. He didn't ask what my religion was. He had got my blood all over him. He just saw someone in need and dropped what he was doing, pulled over, jumped out of his truck, and saved my life. And so that's what we need to ask ourselves. The people we surround ourselves with, not just are they good people, not just are they super smart mortgage people, or where do they go to college? We need to ask them. We need to ask ourselves about them. Would they get your tray for you? Would they tie a tourniquet around your leg if you were bleeding to death? I know that's very, tragic and drastic, but seriously, because those are the people who have a passion in their heart for everything that they do in life. And I promise you, as the saying goes, who you surround yourself matters. So those people, if you surround yourself by those people, not only will you learn the things that they know, but you will adopt that passion as well. And Kevin, that's what you talk about, the culture, right? EPM from the bottom down. It's just contagious. Like, it's not just Eddie, it's not just Carrie, it's not just Kenny, like, it's everyone. Like, it's just contagious. And what that does is, on those tough days, on those bad days, it just helps put a little bit more air in your lungs. It just inspires you just a little bit more to keep fighting. And so that's really what life and this business comes down to. We can't forget why and who we do this job for. And I don't just mean our own families. I do mean the families that we serve. And I think by having that mentality and having that idealism, by looking for those people to surround ourselves with, that's truly how you become successful.
Wow. Love it. Absolutely. It's tough to ask you a question, but we're going to ask you the staple question here. You gave us so much, I tell you. Whether it's, the podcast is really about value. And for you, whether it's within our industry or outside of our industry, how do you define your value?
Honestly, I just comes down to being authentic and being real, and just also that same no quit attitude is what I try and carry myself with in business. And I want my clients to know that I will try, till no end to serve them, to help them. And I let clients know, look, unfortunately, there's other things that come into play, credit and income and interest rates and down payment. And that's okay, but not everyone's a buyer right now. But that doesn't mean you're less of a person. Like, clients, if you tell a client that they can't buy a home right now, I mean, it's like you punch them in the gut. I mean, it's almost like you told them they're a failure. They're looking at their kids maybe living in an apartment, and they want to have a home and a backyard. They can get a dog, things like that. And so, same thing, instead of telling them, hey, Tom, you can't walk, you're never going to walk again. Instead of telling them, Susie, you're never going to buy a home. Hey, look, Susie, right now is not the time, but here's our plan of action. Here's what we can do, A, B, and C. That's what you get with me. I don't expect everybody to be a buyer right now, and I don't care if everybody's a buyer right now. My goal is to eventually get you in a home. And people ask, like, why do you try so hard? Because I know what it's like to feel helpless. Sure, on a much larger scale, right? Like a much larger scale. But to someone else, not having an actual home and having to live in an apartment or live with their family, or their kids go to a bad school district and they want to get them into a nicer school district, that's feeling helpless. And you never know what someone's going through. Yeah, I share all of my challenges, but not everyone does. You never know what someone else is walking through in life carrying. And so I never want someone to feel helpless, whether it's a loan officer that works with me, whether it's a title company or an underwriter or a client. I never want to be that person that makes someone feel helpless. I want to be the opposite. Just like that person that texts me that message, I want to just help alleviate some of their struggle, give them a plan of action, give them alternatives, show them the other side of the coin. I've always said the glass is half full. We have to remember that. There's always a positive you can find in a negative, always. Sometimes it's not evident in the very beginning. Sometimes it takes you a while to find those. But I'm walking proof, literally walking proof, that the worst things in life can be turned into something triumphant. Because I literally have experienced some very, very substantial tragedy. I know there's people out there that have experienced worse and have survived worse, and those people inspire me. But we all need to remember what we've overcome in life, and that's our value. That's our value. We are survivors. We are warriors deep down. We have to remember that. We have to remember not only us surviving those challenges is what is amazing, but sharing those with others and showing them that they can overcome those things as well. Nobody's going to see your value if you close 300 loans a year, because what does that mean to them? That actually might mean the opposite. You don't have time if there's a problem. You're so used to the easy loans. That's not me. That's not what I'm about.
Wow. That's awesome, Tom. Man, I really want to thank you. And I want to thank you personally. I mean, I've slowly gotten the confidence to share my story and stuff I used to protect. And after listening to you at Vision 2020, I'm like, this guy just laid it all out there. I mean, you couldn't have been any more open and honest about your story. I went home and, people are like, I never knew that happened to you. What do you mean you lost a brother like that? And I shared my story and they're like, wow, I would have never known that for you. And you showed up for work every day and you worked that hard? Absolutely. That's because that's what I had to do. But, you can do it too.
All right. Thank you, Tom. And if you get a chance, go on YouTube and get the full Tom story. I tell you, like Kevin said, we saw it at Vision Summit. I knew Tom. I knew a little bit about his story, but I got a chance to see the whole story and watch the presentation. But it's truly inspiring.
Well, we got some new shirts to print up. Give up or get up.
I love it. I wrote that down. Give up or get up.
Yeah. So I look forward to seeing you next week. I'm sure we'll see you next week out in Vegas, Tom. I hope we do. If not, I'm sure we'll see you at some point now that it's show season. But listen, I want to thank you for your time. As always, anyone feel free to reach out. Kenny and I, our emails are simple. It's kdelory@epm.net or kphillips@epm.net. Like Kenny said, check out Tom on YouTube. Reach out to Tom. I mean, he's every time I see him, he's always got a group of people that he's talking to and helping out. So it just goes to show it's not all talk. Talk is cheap. He actually walks the walk. So, I appreciate that about him. And if you'd like to learn more, you can always head over to EPM Wholesale on LinkedIn or Facebook. You can check us out, Broker Success. And as always, like I said, reach out to any one of us. We're always here. We look forward to, seeing a lot of you on the circuit in the next couple of months. Look forward to, seeing Tom out there. And, check us back, when our next podcast coming out. I think we're going to be off next week due to we'll be out in Fuse, and then we'll be back the following week. So thank you for everyone for tuning in. Thanks again, Tom. We'll be sending you the shirt out because no one deserves this shirt more than you, my friend. And everyone check back for my new suit next week because I'll be back in my uniform. Thanks again, Tom.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a blessed day.